Good morning, everyone. So today I thought we would start off by talking a little bit about HTML, or Hyper-Text Markup Language. This is one of the main and core languages used by web developers to structure a web page. HTML does this by labeling groups of text with what's known as an HTML tag. HTML tags, there's lots of different kinds, and that's kind of the key to learning HTML, is just to learn the tags and how they're used. But we have some examples like a div tag, which stands for division. Don't worry too much about these because they make more sense once we get into actually using them. But there's the p tag for paragraph, and as you can see we have it's a set here. We got the opening tag and then the closing tag with the slash. So for the open tag, we want the close tag. There's things like an ordered list as well. The navigation tag, if I can type. And these are just some quick examples of what these HTML tags look like. And like I said, these are used to label groups of text. The way we might do that would be, let's say we'll use the p tag for paragraph, and we use this for just plain text. So this is a paragraph. So what we have here now is, obviously we have our p tags, and then inside is the content, and together the content plus the tags, all of this is what's known as an HTML element. And these are basically what completely make up the structure of your web page. What you can do with these as well is nest them within one another. So we're going to bring back that div tag, but what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to put the closing div tag. We want to indent that, and this is what a nested tags look like, because we have our paragraph element right here, and it is within or nested inside the div tag. So that's kind of the basics there for some of the tags, but there are unique tags known as one-sided tags, like line break, which is written like that. You'll see that there's just one, and it has the slash at the end. But from that, we can actually start to create our little kind of web page. We're not getting too far into it this morning, but another one-sided tag is what we're going to start off our document with. And you want to put this at the top, and it's going to be exclamation point doc type HTML. This one actually does not have the slash in it, but this is the tag that lets the browser know that the following document is an HTML document. The next thing we want to do is we're going to use HTML tags. And what this is going to do is it's going to make our entire web page an HTML element. So if you remember, we've got our tags opening and closing here, and then the content between them is what makes the whole thing an element. So the tags plus the content. So the entire web page is going to go in between the opening and closing HTML tags. Next, we're going to divide it into two main sections, which is going to be the head and the body. The head, these tags are used for metadata. This is where you'll put different things that search engines will use to find your website, things that the browser will use to interpret, like character sets and the title of the document, as well as if you have any external files that you want linked in, it will go in the head. So a couple of examples of that. We're going to start with the meta tag, and it's a one-sided tag. And we're going to actually introduce something new with this, and it's called a attribute value pair. So the one we're going to be using is charset, which stands for character set, equals UTF-8. So what this is, as you can see, it goes inside the HTML tag. You have the left side of the equal sign and the right side. The left side here is the attribute name. This is what's coded into the HTML language, and it kind of tells what kind of attribute the value is going to be, which the value is here on the right side. This is the attribute value, and that's the specific one to that. So there's multiple different types of charsets. The one we're going to be using is UTF-8. Next, like I was mentioning, we're going to use the title tag. This is our title. Got a little mixed up there, writing title too many times. Okay, so I'll save that. And what this is this text right here on the new tab. So now that I've saved it, if I refresh this, this is our title. So that's changed that up there. So whatever you want displayed in as the text up here in the tab, that will be in the head as your title. Before we go into, so this will be probably all we put in our head. Usually there's a lot more data that goes there because there's a lot more behind the scenes stuff that the user doesn't need to see that will be put there. Like I said, search engines, all that extra stuff that we just have no need for just getting used to HTML. But as you can see, going back, we've got different nested, like multiple nested elements within each other. We've got our attribute value pair. We got full elements, tags, and content. So real quick before moving on to the body, just a little extra when it comes to tag nesting is that we've got HTML. Anything inside of the HTML, like head and body, that's what we got inside the HTML. These are known as children elements to HTML, while HTML is known as a parent element to body and head. Similarly, meta and title are children elements to head, and head is parent to meta and title. The next real quick thing about this is that meta and title, where they share a parent, they are sibling elements. Head and body are kind of the same thing. They share the HTML parent, and they're both children of it, so they are siblings. It's just pretty straightforward, but it's really good to know because a lot of things are referred to in nesting, and if you work with object-oriented programming and things like that, parent-child relationships becomes more and more important as you go along. So now that we're getting into the body of the page, this is where the user end, like what the user will see right here in the white space, will come from. We're going to start with a H1 tag. H stands for header, and these are predefined tags that basically format a little bit for us. So let's see it real quick and we'll talk some more. Save and refresh, and boom, it says header. So it displays the content. The font size comes from this tag as well as it being bold. Now, headers come in a variety of sizes. So we can say subheader right here with an H2. Save and refresh, and you can see the difference here. It maintains the bold, it just changes the font size. And that is valid from H1 all the way down to H6 with decreasing sizes. Really small. So that's kind of the range, is from here to here with the headers. And it's just a quick and easy way for titling sections of your web page. Another tag I would like to go ahead and just throw out here that we may use a little bit in the future. It's not my typical way of making a navigation bar, but we do have the nav tag for navigation. Put that there and we'll refresh, and that just shows up as plain text. So you might be wondering how this makes a navigation bar. A lot of that will come from nesting items within the nav bar, as well as styling it with let me finish my train of thought there. As long as styling it with CSS, that's where what you're familiar with seeing on websites will come from. So we do that, and boom, home next type thing. Okay. Then we also have an ordered list I showed you a little bit earlier. You've seen this tag, but this tag has something special about it because it's a list tag. And well, tricky on saying that way in my opinion, but with lists they will take a specific type of HTML element known as a list element, where you will use the list tag li to create the list element. So we just want to go ahead and give it a few of these. I'll save it. We'll refresh. And we have a list here. And where it's an ordered list, you can see it's ordered 1, 2, 3. And it's all vertical. Just like up here with home and next. Which, for comparison, real quick, normally the text is horizontally oriented. So like with the paragraph that we saw earlier, paragraphs are used for just plain old text, sentences, kind of the part of the web page that if this was a newspaper, it'd be like the article. So if we do that and we refresh, see it's just a normal sentence going horizontally, whereas nav puts it vertically without anything next to it. Ordered list puts it vertically with an order 1, 2, 3. And then to compare that to a different type of list, we have an UL, which is unordered list. Where this is for making a list, it also requires the list element. Say item again, and I'm gonna go ahead and just cheat a little bit. You want to minimize copying and pasting as much as possible. It's really not a thing you want to do a lot with code. But we save that and we refresh. And then once again we get our list of items vertically oriented. But this time where it's an unordered list, it's just bulleted out. It doesn't matter what order you read them in. This is more step by step, and this is just kind of a grocery list. Doesn't really matter what order you pick it up in. We have the button tag for different buttons. So we can do that, and we'll refresh, and we have a submit button. Now where this is HTML, we have to remember this is for structuring the website. This is not for styling or functionality. So we can click this all day. It does absolutely nothing other than sit there and look like a button and kind of give you the effect of being pushed. We can add a footer tag, where this is typically where stuff like copyright will go. Close that off, and we'll refresh. Right there, we got a little bit of a footer. Now, as you can see, like I said, it's becoming very clear kind of what HTML does. It allows us to order things on the web page, and that's about it. It is not a very powerful language visually, but the ability to structure things and organize content is very powerful with this, especially obviously when it's coupled with CSS and JavaScript. So next, we use input And we're going to come back to the attribute value pairs for this. So we're going to say type radio refresh, and we have a little radio button right here. But that's kind of weird, and it's just sitting there all by itself. So what we do is we add some content, and then we want to go ahead and do that again. Voila. Oh, I guess it would make more sense to give a few more options, a little bit more choice than that. But now you've got these. However, as you can see, the way they're set up currently, just for the sake of demonstration, you can select both of them. But we'll get more into buttons when I do a specific video on buttons and forms in HTML. But as we were saying, the attribute value pair here, we got the attribute type, and then we got the attribute value radio. We could change this to checkbox. Refresh. Now we got a checkbox. Another type of input is obviously text. We can use a new type of attribute value pair called the placeholder. This will be the placeholder text will be what comes out of the value here. And remember, these are built into HTML. You just kind of have to learn them. You'll get used to them. You'll just see them over and over and over again. And then these, some of them, like radio, checkbox, and text, they're kind of built in as well. They have specific meanings. Some things like placeholder text here, you can just kind of put yourself, do that, and then you'll see now that I have placeholder text, and when I type, boom. But remember, as we said, this does nothing, which this isn't. This is not best practice for creating buttons that take input and stuff, because we'd want to nest it and things like that. I'm just going back to nesting real quick. Just as an example, say we want all of this text right here, from H1 down to H2. We want to make this our header. So one good practice would be to use the div tag that we saw earlier. It stands for division. It divides up parts of the web page. And we're going to close it on the other side. My text editor doesn't like that because things aren't indented properly. So I'm going to fix that. But now we have this whole div with more nested elements. And if we save and refresh, you see nothing changes. That's because all div does is groups these together. These are now grouped together. Even though that's not visible, that's going to come in handy when you start styling the web page. For example, we could leave the paragraph by itself, come down here, do div, and div to divide up this section. We're saying, we can indent all that over. And then once again we save it, we refresh, nothing happens. But what's going on behind the scenes now is that these are all grouped together, and then this stands alone, and then these are all grouped together. Oh, too much. These are all grouped together. So one last thing real quick is another attribute value pair that I want to go ahead and show you is class. So we're going to call this one heading. And this is one of those that obviously class, the attribute name built in, but the attribute value is like placeholder. It's something we give it. We can name this class whatever we want. Just for purposes, we're going to say this class is whatever. That's bad practice. whatever we want. People use different formatting for naming classes. I do hyphen because that's just what I was taught when I was learning CSS. But once again, now if we change this, refresh it, nothing happens. This is just to label this div as part of this class. That'll make more sense when we get into a CSS video, but for now, just to get used to it, just kind of see it. You don't have to fully understand what's happening yet, because honestly, for this video and this section, it's not actually doing much of anything. And then lastly, we have the ID, which is very similar. We're going to say whatever ID we want as the value of that. You'll see that this is orange, this is blue, which is interesting. This is the only one that's blue. The reason for that is ID is a little different. Where class is set up, you can have multiple things of this class. So we could go ahead and say that both of these divs are the class whatever we want. But this specific div here with the list has the ID of whatever ID we want. What this will allow us to do when we get to styling is we can access the class whatever we want. And we're going to say you need a blue background. That will give both this and this a blue background. And then we can access the ID, whatever ID we want, which is just attached here, and say, but I want you to have red text. So that will mean that you have a blue background with red text, but you have a blue background with black text. There we go. And that's just kind of what these are for. Like I said, ID can only be assigned to one thing. I've always been taught you want to minimize using IDs as much as possible unless there's a reason for it. That sounds like, oh, then why would you ever use IDs? But as you get into it, you'll see there are lots of reasons to use IDs, but outside of those reasons, it's probably best just to go ahead and stick with classes. A lot of things that you would want to try to do with an ID can be done through class. But this gives you a really strong introduction here to HTML. This is really HTML in a nutshell. Is you've got tags, you can nest them down from parent down to child, siblings next to each other, or child up to parent. You've got the head for the metadata, you've got the body for the actual web page, and then it's just learning these tags, learning the tags, and then learning the attribute value pairs. That's all you really need to do to get familiar with HTML. But if you're looking at this and saying, wow, this is overwhelming, there's so many of these, how am I going to remember it? It's just practice. It's not too bad, I really promise. They all kind of are intuitive on how they're labeled. Once you understand that OL means ordered list, then you can pretty much guarantee that if you have a list of things that go in order, like an instructional, that would be the tag you'd want to use. HTML is a very forgiving language, not very demanding. And then what I'm going to recommend is there's W3 Schools. If you want to go on after this video and just read more about, it'll be hard to separate from the HTML and CSS because most teach these together. I'm going to kind of do them concurrently, but separately, because I think there is value in treating HTML and CSS as different things. Because when I first started, I saw them as kind of a set, and working them together didn't fit my workflow very well. I like structuring it out as much as I can, then tweaking it as I style it. But anyway, w3schools.com. And you can see here they have examples. They talk about things, exercises, quizzes, all their code examples. You can click try it yourself. It comes up here. You can actively change things. Just remove that, run it. Over here it pops up for you. So you don't even have to worry about saving the file, refreshing the browser, any of those things if you just want to practice. And as you can see, there's all types of pages for specific different elements. So you got the p tags, and then we go styles. This is for the style attribute value pair. You may be wondering why that's not a thing I went over in this video. That's because I rarely do inline styling. Inline styling is when the style is put inside of the tag. When we get to CSS, I'll show you we use an external style sheet and we link it in. That's just how I do it. But yeah, it goes on and on. It is a lot of this. Just know how to find it. Just know that W3 schools exist, where you can go and be like, okay, I'm wanting to make a table. How would I do that? You come here. Oh, look, there's the table with the style, and then you've got TR, which is table row, and then TH, which is table head, and then it just goes on down. You make a table out of this. Click try it yourself, and you can see here we've got the H2 comes up right there. And we've got our table, which is the parent to all of this. Then we got the table row, first name, last name, and age, right here. We got the table row for Jill Smith 50, right here, and on down. And that's a great way to practice and learn, is just reading through documentation like this, always knowing you can go back to it. You don't have to memorize everything, especially starting out. That was the biggest thing that I was worried about when I first started learning to code, is like, how am I going to remember all this? The answer is you don't. You remember what you use, you remember what you need, and then you know kind of what your language can do. Like, I know that HTML is for structuring. If I want to structure a table in my thing, and I didn't know that table tag existed, I would just kind of see how other people structure it. I would look it up on Google, that type of thing. Links is a thing here we'll get into a little bit more when it's a little more relevant, but as you can see, it's just A for anchor, and then the text goes in there. I'll go over here actually. And then you got A for anchor on both sides. This is nested within the P, and with the shared content, the visit our HTML tutorial. And then you've got the attribute value pair href, and then the value of the link. This is called an absolute link because it's the full URL. And sure enough, if I click that, what'd you look there? Talk about getting meta. The last two things real quick, just for further resources. It's okay if you've tuned out of this video at this point, because I might be rambling a little bit, but because I just want to give you kind of a where to go from here. So you've got Free Code Camp. This is absolutely great for practicing and learning code. As you can see here, this is the responsive web design, basic HTML and HTML5. I've knocked all of this out. I did this all in a sitting, but I'd already taken a class in college about HTML and CSS. But you can just go through here. I'll start here. Over here, it tells you all the stuff we've talked about, HTML element, opening, closing tags, code editors and stuff. And then to pass the test, on this challenge, change your H1 elements text to say hello world. We say hello world, run test, and then we're good. And you just go through that, and it gives you practice. You can do them over and over and over again. And those are just some good resources to continue learning HTML and getting better at it and kind of understanding it. But thank you all for watching this. I hope this gives you at least a little bit of an introduction if you've never been exposed to HTML before. If you have but didn't quite get it, I hope this maybe cleared some things up. If you've been exposed before, or you now have watched this video as exposure to HTML and you still have questions or don't fully understand something, please, you can send me a direct message. You can leave a comment. I'm all about answering questions, helping people learn. I think there's a stigma around learning coding that it's got to be hard, difficult type of thing, and I don't think anyone would say learning to code is easy, but I don't think learning to code has to be hard. So with that, I want to try to help you all out as much as possible. So just reach out to me. I'll be here. Once again, thank you all for watching, and until next time, we'll figure something else out to do.